It's time for world politics. I understand that there are other folks who are dropping out of the race. That's right. We learned that the vice president or the former vice president is no longer in the race. So Mike Pence has said, had enough. Don't want to be the president. Don't think that there's any chance that I'm going to win. And all along those lines. So he has dropped out of the race. And we've got other folks that might be entering the race. So I know that there are some new people that are talking about running even on the Democratic side and all along those lines. But everybody that I'm talking to is saying that we're heading toward a rematch. That's right. The third time is going to be the charm. Well, actually, in this case, it'll be the second time because it looks like we're going to have a rematch of Trump versus Biden. So that looks like where we're getting ready to head to. And of course, if either one of them would go against this next friend of mine, they would not stand a chance at all. I'm glad to introduce to you the next president of the United States, none other than Adam Lamparello. So we do know that Adam will be running, and he runs and he enters the race against those fine folks, both Mr. Trump and Mr. Biden. I am pretty much confident that Adam Lamparello will win the race, and I think that he secretly made a call to Mr. Pence, which is why Mr. Pence dropped out of the race. So go ahead, Adam. Go ahead and admit it. You're the one is the reason why Mr. Pence is no longer in the race because you called him and you said, I'm getting ready to enter, and therefore you need to leave the race. So isn't that what happened?
Well, Mike Pence has common sense, and as such, he left the race. All I'm asking for is an opportunity. Give me an opportunity to go on the campaign trail and meet the American people. If that happens, I'll win. Trump and Biden will lose, and we will make America great again, but in the right way.
I hear you. Well, there is a person that is great here in this network. They are doing some amazing things. They could also be, after you win, the first woman president in the United States. And all along those lines, they say that they might not want to do that because they have also run successful businesses, done a number of other things in that lane. And I'm not sure, but this is Halloween and it's Halloween time, and they associate themselves, I don't know why, but I've heard them say it even here on Pod TV, with the whole culture of witches and all along those lines. So I'm going to introduce you to Kim Calhoun and all in that space. It is Halloween, and she's ready to put some magic onto the whole situation and make sure that the politicians act right. That would be a major spell in and of itself, Kim. So what is your thoughts around this? Because I'm thinking that you could win as well. You could be the first female president, skip Hillary, skip Kamala. I'm thinking you could be the first female president, and not just the president or CEO of Pod TV, but president of the United States.
Oh, I think I'm very happy being the president of Pod TV, and I'll let Adam handle it and just back him all the way. Sometimes you got to use your common sense and know who's the right person. And I truly believe Adam carries that
wand. He's got common sense.
Magic to be the right person. But thank you for that vote of confidence. But we've got a lot that we need to take care of. And I think Adam has what it takes to get in there and take care of it.
No doubt, Adam definitely got it. But one thing that we oftentimes hear about is that there are leaders that also come from what some people call the left coast or the west coast and all along those lines. And we've got another guest that's going to come on. I think that he would do better than none other than Gavin Newsom, because I know that Gavin Newsom is a talk of somebody coming from the west coast, but we need somebody that's got some common sense, some leadership abilities and all along those lines. So if nothing else, Adam should make this man his vice president, and I'm bringing on Jim Eade. Jim Eade, you've got some common sense, you've got some great knowledge, and all along those lines, and I think you can do better than Gavin Newsom. So that is why I'm thinking that you can be a great vice president.
I would vote for any graduate of Hogwarts. So Kim and I are up there. But yeah, I would run for vice president as long as the chess politics play out the way I want them to.
Chess politics is very important. And speaking of chess politics, and I know that one of the things Adam has said, and he doesn't always agree with this man about this because this man is not a fan of Russia, even though I know Adam is a fan of Russia and says he's going to have a different relationship with Russia, but he is a fan of chess. And there's just one minor little catch, but I think we can get around this catch because technically speaking, they say you can't be from this country and win the presidency. So all the way from Canada, I'm going to bring in my good friend, Sasha Starr. So Sasha Starr, I hate to say it, you can't win the presidency because you're over there in Canada, I think Toronto. So that's like one of them silly rules that we've got in the United States. We want people from the United States to be president, but you would be a great president. So I think they got to get rid of that rule as well. But just some quick thoughts and all along those lines. I'm actually going to turn this conversation over because, as I was telling y'all, I've got to run off to my cultural arts center and all along those lines. But I thought I'd have a little bit of fun with the introductions, and I'm now going to turn it over to you, fine folks, along those lines. So I may pop in as I'm getting ready, but right now I'm going to let y'all have discussions around the political world. But just had a little bit of fun getting it started. Kim and Adam, I'm turning it over to you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. He is such a great advocate, and he gets so involved with all of the wonderful things in our local area, and he's always staying busy. I don't know how he does it all. And he also runs a beautiful nighttime TV show that I dearly love called Naked at Night. So, and it's about the political issues, and, you know, somebody's painting somebody naked and they yell at
it is.
It is very funny. But anyway, so is some of our politics, right? Could be a little bit hilarious, you know, like we're running two of the same people again. That's a big joke on us, right? But what are some other things that we have going on today that we do need to be looking at and discussing, and some of the things that we have to start addressing to make sure that we rightly vote the right people? Boy, that didn't come out because Steve was popping in. I was trying to get Steve.
Hey guys, I'm sorry.
That's all
Welcome,
right.
Steve, all the way.
I'm wearing my fedora today. Sorry. Thank you so much.
I'm a hack guy.
Sorry I'm late. I had a meeting that went over, and it's just been crazy. But I wanted to welcome everyone to World Politics. And what I wanted to talk about today is Israel war continues to wage on. Netanyahu is saying he doesn't want a ceasefire. What does that mean for the war? U.S. slowly getting involved with their attacks on Syria. Jordan asking for assistance. So it's just a very unstable time. While all this going on, we have a war in Ukraine. At least we have a new speaker. And then the other thing, yesterday, President Biden, for the first time in the history of our country, issued an executive order on artificial intelligence, which is going to be interesting to see what happens with AI and how it can be used. What are the concerns we have? John Chambers just returned from India, but before he left to India, I had an hour conversation with him over a virtual coffee. For him, it was a Diet Coke. It was 12 o'clock California time, and he said that AI is something that's going to be here to stay. The innovation's occurring very fast, but also could pose a good opportunity if used in the right way. So those are some topics we're going to talk about today. Adam, good to see you. I don't know what you think about this whole situation in the Middle East. Is it good for the U.S., bad? And what do you think it's going to play out in the presidential races?
I think in the short term, Israel's doing the right thing. Hamas's attack was barbaric. What it did to women, children, and families was despicable. I think Hamas needs to be eradicated. However, I also believe we need a Palestinian state. And we have to separate the Palestinians from Hamas. And if there's going to be peace, there's got to be a recognition of Israel's right to exist, and there has to be a Palestinian state. But before any of that can happen, Hamas should be destroyed. What they did was not only despicable, but they will never stop. They don't recognize Israel's right to exist. The conflict will never be eradicated until these extremist elements are eliminated, and we have moderation that leads to a two-state solution. We have to have compassion for the Palestinians and the Israelis.
That until this is settled, we're really not going to have our country ready to do anything. I mean, is it so? I mean, I'm devastated by all of the war and mess that they're doing, and all the innocent lives that are all these innocent people that are dying, that it really, this shouldn't be happening. But is this something that you believe that we need to have settled before we can move on?
I don't think it's ever going to be settled, if you want my honest opinion. I think the Middle East crisis, Middle East problem, it's an intractable problem. We've been saying for years a two-state solution. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, I at Camp David, Bill Clinton came this close to getting an agreement. I believe it was between Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin, and then later Ehud Barak. But it didn't happen. I predict more of the same going forward for years to come, unless we have a true Palestinian state with moderate leaders that recognize Israel's right to exist. But I'm not optimistic, to be honest with you, and I think that we're going to see more of the same in the years ahead.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that I mean, when you go back to the history of this conflict, I think, and I spoke about this on the radio the other day, this all started in World War I and dated to World War II. And, no matter what happens, it's kind of like the Palestinians have their side of the story that they were there before. You have Israel that wants to have their own state. We've had, Camp David Accords. We've had, successes of bringing the two-state solution. But now I think it's kind of like, does this flare up and go back again? I mean, I think it's just a very unstable region, and I don't see this playing out well in the near future. But
one thing I'll say is that we just can't be worried about the Palestinians and the Israelis. We have to worry about the broader implications of this conflict. Namely, Russia is starting to take the side of Hamas. Iran. We have to worry that this is going to have ripple effects that could lead other countries into wars too. And that is the kind of the wild card. I'm not sure how it's going to play out, but that's what worries me, in addition to the instability between the Palestinians and Israelis.
Oh, on the other front.
Do you think that BRICS is getting involved and they are backing Hamas at this time? The organization BRICS. Do you think that, I mean, you've listed a few names there. Is that something to be concerned about?
Yes, because Russia's getting their weapons from Iran. That's why they're backing Hamas. And we're creating alliances that could be dangerous, and we're creating tensions that are going to extend far beyond the Middle East. And how we resolve those, I'm not sure yet. That's, like I said, the wild card.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Very much. And all the way from Raleigh, North Carolina, Nick Palaveda, one of the founders of Pod TV, has joined us. Welcome, Nick.
I was going to say that a new person has announced, Dean Phillips, who's a representative from Minnesota, has announced his candidacy for the presidency of the United States to compete with old Joe Biden. So, and this guy has serious money.
Before we get this, I want to throw something out just before we bring Sasha Starr in, just something that I heard from Governor Roy Cooper in North Carolina held the Democratic Summit, and I was one of the sponsors, and the guest that evening was Secretary Buttigieg, so we got to spend some time with him, who's now the Secretary of Transportation. But what was very interesting at the end, we had a very good presentation from a consultant in North Carolina, which Morgan Jackson from Nexus Strategies, and what he said was very interesting. So what's happening in North Carolina, the trends are looking that the urban areas are growing faster and that the Democratic areas are growing much faster in North Carolina. So there will come a time when it becomes a blue state. The challenge right now is that 80% out of most rural areas in North Carolina Republican are 95% white. And in the urban areas is much more minority makeup. So what's happened is the legislature, basically turns them out to keep the majorities, the supermajority vetoes. Mark Robinson is actually right now in a slight lead against Josh Stein because he's raised more money than any Republican governor in the North Carolina history. And so it's going to be a close election. But what's interesting is that what I got out of it was that Biden's going to be putting a lot of money in North Carolina, and that Biden is the nominee that the Democrats had to get behind. So that's what Morgan Jackson said. They just need to say, you know what, if we're going to beat Trump, we got to go with Biden. But I'm not hearing that from a lot of Democrats.
Hey, just really quickly, and this is a question I had for Adam before I totally disappeared, as I said I was going to do earlier. But Adam, one of the things that I remember from the 22 election, and you actually are somewhat part of the group, even though you're even older than what I'm getting to mention and everything. But the youth vote seems to be very important. I've heard some very interesting statistics that between 2016 and 2020, youth voter turnout jumped by 11%. And in 2022, they recorded the highest turnout in the first midterm compared to other generations. So you are probably the closest to that generation, even though you are definitely older and definitely in that 40-50 set or in that kind of range, but you're closer to that youth voice and everything. So is this a voice that you think is actually being addressed? Are we actually talking to the youth, and are we actually talking to issues that they are concerned about? Because even when y'all were talking about the situation with Hamas and the two-state solution, a lot of the voices that we're hearing are the activists out of the youth community, whether we like what they're saying or not. I was even watching a video of Jews for Peace, which was a group that was asking for a ceasefire. And I think a lot of those people that were participating were youth advocates, just like they were in the Moral Monday protests that were here in Durham. But Adam, like I said, and I'm gonna listen before I disappear, but what is your thoughts around this notion of, are we addressing the youth, and are we actually addressing what they are wanting in politics?
Probably not. And I think it's because the youth typically goes largely Democrat. I think what we need to be focusing on is the independents. And I think the independents are shifting towards Trump for a few reasons. First, they're not as well off as they were under Trump, under Biden's presidency. Number two, I think the border is a significant concern. I think inflation is a significant concern. I think the independents are going to swing more towards Trump. I also think African American and Hispanic voters will vote in a slightly higher percentage for Trump, as I do for suburban women. And I think as a result of that, Trump will recapture the Rust Belt, and he will take Arizona and win the Electoral College against Biden. Because when it comes down to it, whether it's the border, economy, unemployment, inflation, under Biden, they're worse off than they are under Trump. I do believe Trump will win in 2024.
Hey, Jim, just really quickly, and then I will turn it back over to Steve as I slide out. But Jim, you teach chess. You definitely teach some young people. So even though you're closer to my age range and everything, what is your feel about the youth? Because when I think about a youth-led area, California has definitely got some very much youth-led kind of forces and all in that space. But what is your thoughts around the youth vote and all in that space? Because like I said, I'm thinking you might be teaching some of these future leaders even there in teaching chess.
Well, Mark, I consider you a young pup. Yeah, I'm far removed from the youth, although, yes, I do know, especially the parents of many of the children that are involved in chess. And there's no question that the youth, in my experience, are even more to the left than they were. Often there's a backlash, like there was hippies, and then the young generation came behind the hippies, started to move back to the right, and then the next generation moved to the left. There's all sorts of intergenerational things that are going on. But one of the things that I'm seeing is that the young people growing up today just aren't buying the hate mongering that's coming from the right. And I think people today are actually better off than they were under Trump. I think what you hear is this disconnect when they say the economy. If they ask, is the economy doing well? They say yeah. No, they say no. The economy is not doing well. Are you doing well personally? Oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm doing great. That's what most people respond to in polls, and we can argue about polling. But that is the general sense out there that the economy is headed in the wrong direction. There's no evidence for that, but that's the perception. And what we see, in fact, is the economy is doing remarkably well, especially considering the recession that was being predicted since COVID. And fighting the inflation, we thought the only way that we were going to get out of inflation was with a recession. But wages keep going up, jobs keep growing, unemployment keeps dropping to record lows. So people are generally doing very, very well, but the perception is other. And but I still think that the legal problems that Trump is having is going to trump all, and there are going to be the independents that just won't have it. There's going to be Christians that just won't have it. They can't justify what they're seeing, what this guy does, and get it straight with their religious beliefs. Now, there's always going to be about 1/3 of the country that's going to be still wearing their MAGA hats. But the independents are going the other way. The young people are going the other way. And I wish we had a younger person than Biden running for president. I really do. But when it comes down to those two choices, there's no choice. Even if you think it's a Hobson's.
I've never met him, and because I spent some time with him, I got to be honest with you, I was very impressed with Pete Buttigieg. I found him to be, he's a veteran, served 2 tours in Afghanistan, young, charismatic, he got the, Rhodes Scholar. I think he's got the mind. I mean, he is a homosexual, but I have no problem with that. But from a commander in chief, someone young that I think, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, could you lead this country? Could you be the commander in chief? And the answer to that question for me and the time I spent with Buttigieg was absolutely yes. I found him, and I've met Kamala Harris as well. But compared to Kamala, I found him to be much more in the moment, much more alert of his surroundings, very direct eye contact. The last person that I've ever met in politics that had eye contact like that was Colin Powell. I think it's a military trait. I walked away thinking, maybe Biden ought to put him as the vice president. I mean, but definitely Buttigieg could be the president. I mean, one day, I think that he will rise that case. I know the Southwest Airlines was a fiasco, but other than that, I think the guy's got the experience to be commander in chief of this country, and he understands what it's like to go to war. I mean, the guy has done things for this country that I've never done, that many of us haven't done. I put his life at risk for all of us.
In question, and like I said, I'm definitely running out the door and everything. But is the country ready to elect a member of the LGBTQIA community? And I do know there's a lot of folks that still have that kind of Protestant Christian view and all along those lines. So I just don't know if we are ready yet to do that. But I'd love to hear y'all.
Speaker of the House, Mark.
Background.
Speaker of the House. He's not going to go for it. Come on, And if we keep putting people like that in charge, we're going to have our problems as a country, because what Steve said is absolutely true. This guy's a veteran. He's well-spoken. He's educated. He's policy-oriented. He's a wonk. Come on. There's nothing not to like about this guy.
Yes, there is.
Go ahead.
Well, number one, he's inexperienced, and I have not heard ideas from him that would suggest to me that he is sufficiently experienced or worthy of the presidency. But when it comes down to it, I mean, look, we have a country right now that is so divided. We have young people that are being indoctrinated in academia, who have very simplistic views. We have a cancel culture that is intolerant of any type of diversity or diverse viewpoints. And we also have a political system that is corrupted by money. And I come back to one simple fact. Under Trump, the average person was doing quite well.
That's not true, though. That's false. That's just you're blowing that out. You're coming out of not your mouth. That's
the Hispanic and African American employment rate was at its lowest in history. The economy was good. Inflation was low. Taxes were reduced.
That's not true either.
Corporate.
Look at what happened to
we weren't involved in any war.
Debt. What happened to the debt under Trump?
The same thing that happens to the debt under every president, because we do not have a line item veto. That's why.
Trump. It started under Trump.
Okay. Well, I do believe.
Come on.
Every president has become a debt.
And, I will say this, guys. Never before, today of all days, I wish I was living in Moscow and enjoying the freedom under Vladimir Putin. And I'm going to tell you why. What Trump is enduring is a political persecution in which these left-wing prosecutors are using the legal system to persecute him and to prevent him from running for office. Now, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I believe in the rule of law because I'm a lawyer. And I can tell you, they are using the law in Atlanta, they're using it in D.C., in New York, to persecute Trump and stop him from running.
Because he broke the law, and there should be punishment.
No, he has not broken the law.
Oh, he hasn't. There's just mere
he has not.
He's been indicted how many times?
I'm going to have to agree with that.
And this is why I'm hoping that my passport for Moscow is approved, because when I go there, I'm going to pledge allegiance to Vladimir Putin and the freedoms that Moscow provides that apparently Trump doesn't get in the United States.
Yeah. Oh my goodness gracious!
Yeah, I mean, if you
don't be so dramatic.
I'm pretty dramatic about this. Come on, Putin.
Yes, I happen to be. Yes, I happen to respect Vladimir Putin.
Oh, I'm sorry you do. The guy's a fascist dictator.
No need to apologize.
No, I'm sorry that you respect Vladimir Putin. The guy is a terrorist.
Terrorist?
How do you feel about Obama bin Laden?
Is the United States terrorist for
How do you
deposing
feel about
the
Obama
Ayatollah and putting
bin
in the
Laden?
Shah? Are we terrorists for deposing Saddam Hussein? The U.S. has no claim on a moral.
I'm not saying the U.S. is. Hey, why twist my words? I didn't say anything about the U.S. I said something about Putin.
I'm saying that your claim that he's a terrorist is relative. You have to look at it.
It's not relative, man. The guy. What did he do to Chechnya? What did he do to the Ukraine? What happened to the women in the Ukraine when they invaded? Come on, man.
What about the Iraq War, the Bay of
They
Pigs,
did
Vietnam?
nothing of the sort.
Can
They
we
did
go
nothing of the
into
sort.
this?
This was systematic rape that was used, and that's what we call terrorism.
I think
One man's
think
terrorism is
Putin
another
is
man's
as bad as
freedom.
that.
Yeah. Right. You can just okay. I give.
I mean,
on
this
that
hatred
argument.
towards Russia
I
is so
can't talk
rude.
to you anymore.
It
Alan.
really is.
If you're gonna say you're a Putin supporter, you're not an American. I'm not voting
that's
for
not
you.
true. That's not
Yeah,
true.
no, it is.
You're
It is
clean out
true.
too early again.
No, it's true.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're
Because
for Putin, he's the enemy. You're not an American.
he's not an enemy of the United States.
Of course he is.
No, he's not. China
he
is
is.
what we need to be worried
He's doing
about.
everything he can.
China.
He funds Hezbollah. He funds Hamas. Come on.
And how many genocidal
Yeah.
leaders have we
Yeah.
funded?
What's
Not to
wrong
mention
with you,
our
Adam?
wars
I don't
in
understand
Iraq,
this. You're not a
Vietnam.
stupid man.
Oh, okay.
What are you eating? I don't know. Maybe what's your breakfast? What's
George
Omega-3 fatty acids.
Well, that's pretty good.
Thank you.
Hey,
Now,
but I
I
do have to
apologize to Mr. Putin for this diatribe by these panelists. You should
I
be
do have
ashamed.
to agree. I
Yeah.
can't agree with Adam on this Putin thing. I don't know where he gets a kick. I do have
I
to
don't-
agree with
I
the
don't either.
weaponization of the Justice Department. There's
Putin.
absolutely no question that these lawsuits are political.
No,
I
they're
mean,
not, Nick. You can't say
And the
that.
thing is,
Thank you.
there are multiple lawsuits. They're obviously political. This whole
It's
thing
obviously
about,
not political. The guy's a criminal. He's been a
Look
fraud.
at
no,
the
no,
prosecutors and the judges'
Democrat.
political affiliations. And the New York case is a
Yeah.
joke.
Every time I get arrested, I'm innocent. I know. Yeah, I'm innocent. Trump never screwed anybody. He never
Hey.
paid the laborers.
Remember
Right,
O.J.
right.
So
Simpson.
now we're
He's
saying,
innocent. He's a perfect
Putin's-
specimen of the human
okay,
race.
even though
Come
we
on.
should fear bricks and Putin's head of bricks. So, I mean, it's so complicated. Would it be
He's not
better
really
if we
head
just
of
got
bricks.
rid of all of the leaders and build some sort of matrix that ruled the world?
Well, we will when President
It's
Trump
another.
back again.
part of bricks is
We can
China.
engineer AI to rule
Putin
us
doesn't run
all.
China.
Okay, when Trump gets reelected, which he will next year, he's leading by double digits.
Yeah,
when they find out that
Nick.
all these lawsuits-
We know what all the
lawsuits
polls say, right?
are
That's
Weaponization.
nonsense. You're talking nonsense.
Not
Let's-
to
you're
mention
not
what we
even
did
in
in
the
Libya.
primary
How
debate.
horrible.
When they discover that Joe Biden can't find $1 he doesn't want to spend.
Oh
okay,
yeah.
including waste, fraud, and abuse.
How is your country
I
club
think
doing,
it's
Nick?
what the American
How are you
people
one
want.
percenters
It's
doing?
gonna come
How are
down-
you one percenters
Putting
doing
up
under
another
Biden?
$1.7 trillion in
How are
debt,
you one percenters doing
Republican
under
message
Biden,
will
Nick?
come
How's your
through,
country club?
and Trump will be
Your
real.
entire country club is voting for Trump. I understand. All the guys you rub elbows are voting for Trump, but you're a very small
because we
minority.
don't want our
You're
country to go down
1%,
the
Nick.
toilet
You're
like
1%.
like California.
There's
that's
99% of the
Fallon,
country that you don't
between
factor in
Gavin
when
and
you're
Lee
arguing.
I am so sorry, Jim. We don't want our country to go down the toilet like your state of California.
Yeah,
With
North
higher
Carolina,
taxes,
you're smoking something
higher
besides
taxes
tobacco.
in the land,
Nick, I don't know what you're
people
smoking, but it's not
leaving-
tobacco. California is
You're leaving
the
your-
8th largest economy in the world. How's
Their-
North Carolina
Oh,
doing,
California,
Nick?
what a
Your
disgrace.
economy is shrinking
Come on, Nick.
because of your
What are you
horrible,
smoking? It's not
democratic-
tobacco.
horrible democratic policies, highest taxes. You know what the taxes
Oh,
are in
Oh,
his state?
ooh,
Jim's the
You
taxes
come to
are
California to make your fortune, Nick.
Okay, your
Come
tax
to California to make your fortune. And I did. Lots of people did. And then you go to Utah to spend it.
Percent.
You go someplace else to spend it. Someplace that has no state income tax,
Okay.
like Florida.
Here,
And
yeah, that's right.
like
Actually,
Tiger
people are
Woods
moving
did.
to Florida.
Tiger
They're
Woods
moving to
was
Florida.
born and raised in California, and then he went to Florida.
They're going away from California, moving to Texas and Florida because they have.
And they
no
moved to
children
California for a reason. They go to California to make their fortune. Nick, your California hatred is just
monopolize, and
You're
they
just
destroy
stupid about California. Nick.
America.
I don't understand it.
They have
You're
their monopoly.
stupid to hate another state.
Google.
This is what Trump does. He puts one state against another. This is a Trump supporter talking here about another state.
People don't argue
He's
like
hating
this
on
in
another
Russia
state.
because they respect the
There-
regime.
There's your tax.
You just hate California. Okay, say it
Here's
and get
your
over
California
yourself.
Reason to leave if you have any talent, and you can figure a way out. People are leaving your state, Jim.
People are coming to the state, making their
No,
fortune,
they're not.
and
Go
then
look at
leaving.
the
Nick.
numbers. Go look
Then
at the
they're
numbers.
leaving.
I'll be
You're
leaving in about 5
expensive now
minutes.
to live here. That's the problem. You don't understand California. You never lived here.
I'd rather be in
No,
St.
it's-
Petersburg.
I moved there to make my fortune,
be in
and I
California.
did.
No,
You don't know what
they
you're
wanna
talking about,
leave
Nick.
there.
Nick,
They
stick
want
to
to
your
leave there. The
nation.
smart people
Nick,
are
go to your
leaving.
country club and talk to people like yourself.
Yeah,
How
they're leaving
elitist.
California.
It is the elitist. This guy's
I'm
one
really
percenter. He's the elite.
Tons of
This is
homeless
what
Okay,
happens
people.
when
Steve
chess
has
players
got
argue.
something
They
he
have
wants
no
to
people.
say. Steve,
Hey,
what
come on,
do you have
Steve.
to say?
Get control of this meeting.
I just
Steve,
think,
what
well,
do you
I
have
think with the
Have a
president,
break on California. It's that simple.
I think with the presidential election, it's just going to come down to about 5 swing states. I think a lot of it's going to come down to how much money Biden is willing to invest in some of these swing states. I know in North Carolina, he's investing about 25 million. I think that's going to help out the whole ticket from governor down to top bottom of the ballot. I'm going to make an announcement. I'm going to make a decision by the end of the month of whether I'm going to run for labor commissioner. I just don't know whether I'm going to have the time to manage a statewide campaign. I think right now in North Carolina, as a Democrat, unless you're Elaine Marshall, it's basically impossible to win a statewide race. So it's just crazy. But I think that the bottom line is that we're just like Adam Lamparello said, we're such a divided country, and we are a dysfunctional superpower. And we're not. I mean, look, political parties used to be about making the sausage and developing policies that would be compromises from each party. So if you look at Lyndon Johnson and the segregationists and the Southern Dixiecrats, they worked together to pass voting rights legislation, civil rights legislation. But today what's happened is the party is just a symbol for the extremes of each side, and the middle has lost their voice. So the Democrats on the middle, they're being extincted, and the same ones now on the Republicans. So all we're hearing about from the media is the left and the extreme right. How come we never hear from John Kasich? How come we never hear from moderate Republicans that I respect, even as a Democrat?
Sununu in New Hampshire.
Because
Sununu in New
Sununu,
Hampshire,
yeah.
Republican. He's just a conservative. He's not
Reason-
crazy.
Look, the
Right.
reason that you don't hear from moderates anymore is because the extreme parts of both parties have really taken control of the narrative, meaning that the moderates aren't being heard, and neither side, because they become so extreme,
False
wants to
equivalency.
compromise. So they've been marginalized.
That's happened to one party, the Republican Party.
No, it's both parties.
no.
It's like the
That's
Israel-Palestine
false
conflict.
equivalency.
There's
No,
blame
no,
on
no,
both
Joe
sides.
Biden is
And the
moderate.
second thing I'm going to say that
Joe
nobody's
Biden is
talking
moderate.
about.
No,
The
he's
second thing
not.
that's nobody's
Yes,
talking
he is.
about.
Come on.
He
supports
spends
the
money
guys,
like
come
water.
on.
Oh,
You guys are blind.
He's putting
Joe
our country
Biden,
down
of
the
course, he's a
don't
moderate.
fight like this in
Moderate
Moscow.
left.
Now, what I would say is that
Come
what
on.
people aren't talking about is that when Biden won in 2020, he won when we had COVID. So he was able to run essentially in his home. In 2024, he's going to have to run a traditional campaign. He's going to have to physically go through the
Physically?
tediousness of going. And I think what's going to happen is people are not going to perceive him well. He's going to have many gaffes. He's going to look old. And I think those intangible qualities are
And you
going
think Trump
to
is gonna look
turn
good?
this to Trump. And I think the political persecution against Trump using the legal system is going to create a backlash. Trump in 2024, and he's going to build an alliance with Putin that makes us not only greater but
Come
safer.
on, man. You don't
And-
know what political persecution
Trump
was.
is already double digits ahead of Biden.
I know.
Call the election.
It's so difficult being right.
And all the Democrats are going to be crying in their soup when they find out Biden is a complete fraud. He's spending the government's money into oblivion. His last budget, he's
I can
1.7
hear
billion.
you rubbing elbows at your club, man.
Sasha,
Yeah.
we haven't heard from
He-
Sasha
he-
start.
I-
So, Sasha, I think
I-
come on,
I-
man,
Let's
before I
hear from
leave.
somebody who's got a brain.
Goodbye, Joe.
Question
Goodbye.
is to Nick. Nick,
You know
you
what's
are strong
interesting to
believer.
me is
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
U.S. we spend more time campaigning than they do running in the office. Isn't that interesting to you? I mean, this was a joke in Australia about us. Is that we spend more time campaigning and debating than our politicians don't run the office that long. So I mean, it's just interesting.
Well, that's the house. That's true of the house. They always
Well,
start
not in Russia.
campaigning.
Putin's been there for decades, and rightfully so. That's
Right.
this term limit thing really bothers me. I mean, when you have a good leader, why not stick with a good thing?
That's right. Yeah. When you have a fascist dictator, keep him.
He is not a fascist dictator. He
He's
is a
a fascist
nationalist.
dictator. Keep him in
And in
power.
Russia, you'll be just
Until
fine
someone
as long as you don't get out of
assassinates them
line.
when there's a power change. Yeah, like all fascists.
As long as you don't
That's
get
the
out
way
of
it
line,
goes.
you're fine.
You're in charge until someone blows your brains
Yeah,
out.
yeah,
You're not
he's
in charge.
he's a lot like, I have to say Putin is a lot like Joe Biden.
He's
He
a
allows
genius.
no-
He is.
Joe Biden doesn't allow anybody other than
Right.
himself
Let's
to
hear
graduate
from
into a
Sasha.
higher
Nick,
position.
Nick is a California
Sasha
hater.
lived in Russia,
Nobody.
so he
He's
knows.
an old
Old
Let's
man
hear
man
from
hater.
him.
Joe or nobody.
Yeah, he's
You
the
have
one
some
percenter. We get it. We got it, Nick.
Anti-Russia sentiment.
Adam loves
You're
Putin.
right.
Okay, let's hear from Sasha.
You're right, Adam. Biden
Adam.
has a lot of similarities. with
Sasha,
Putin.
start, please. We haven't heard from him.
Adam,
Now, Nick,
question
zip
to
it.
you. Adam, question to you. You support Mr. Putin. That's fine. It appears to me that you also support Hamas. Why do you support Hamas?
I don't support Hamas.
Oh,
I
you
think
don't?
what they did was
Okay.
despicable,
A
and I
few
think they
days
should be
ago-
wiped off the map.
Okay, good boy. A few days ago, Putin hosted the delegation from Hamas officials. It was official. It was shown on all Russian television channels. So, how would you explain that? I'll listen to you, Adam.
How would I explain that?
Yes, please.
When did he host this?
3 days ago, particularly
I don't-
Saturday, Sunday.
I don't know enough details to be able to explain it one way or another. What I'm trying to say about Putin is, okay, so everybody hates Putin. Well, what's the alternative? What is the alternative to Putin? And what threat does Russia really
Well, we don't
pose
know.
to this country? What threat does
Gorbachev.
Russia pose to this country?
Well, we don't.
Ask
We should
Ukraine.
be
We don't
focusing
really
on
know that.
China and Iran.
Why don't you ask Ukrainians? And if Russia will be successful in Ukraine, then you will ask Baltic states.
I don't want to ask the
then you will
Ukrainians. I want to ask
Poland,
NATO.
Then you will ask Germany. Then you will ask France. And then you will ask your country, United States.
And you can
who is
blame
now
NATO for that.
helpless. You don't have military production. You have nothing right now. The Russian is building a huge and very effective force. And if it wouldn't be for NATO and United States, they would overrun Ukraine a long time ago, and they would go to Poland, they would go to Baltic states, and on, and they would take, and once they would start to take over Europe, then American boys would have to go and fight in Europe and be killed mercilessly
I mean, you
by
asked me
Russia.
questions.
Do you understand that or not?
No, you asked me a question. I'll ask you a question. I want to know why you view Russia as such a threat and why you believe that deposing Putin is somehow going to lead to any substantive change in our relationship.
Okay, it's at this point it's irrelevant whether it's
Oh,
Russia
it's irrelevant.
with Putin or
I
without.
got an
It's
answer.
irrelevant. Russia is now a juggernaut. It's the same state as was fascist Germany in 1939. There is no difference at all. They want to take revenge for losing the Cold War when they were reduced to nothing. They were absolutely nothing. No money, no food, no nothing. US could take their nuclear arsenal for a song, say for not even $1 billion, probably $500 million would do. They would disarm Russia once and for all. Instead, they were sort of trying to help Russia, and even to help Russia, not that much.
Sasha, I don't see Russia. I'm not like a Russian supporter per se, but quite frankly, I don't see Russia as even close to a threat to the U.S. or national security at all. I'm worried
Right,
about
but look
China.
at
I'm worried about Iran. I mean, Russia to me.
You're worrying about what makes you to worry about Iran? Okay, explain.
I'm sorry? What makes me worry about Iran? What makes me worry about Iran is not only are they funding Hamas, but after we, depose Saddam Hussein in Iraq, they're the major power and they are the major threat to Israel. And we don't want them getting nuclear weapons.
Is a threat to Israel. You must be crazy out of your mind. What do you think? How many days will last the war between Israel and Iran? They will never fight with their own forces. They are scared to death. What they're doing, okay, here's a little Hezbollah, here's a little Hamas, here's somebody else, Yemen. That's all what they're doing once it will come really to show. Now, don't worry about Iran helping Hamas. In a few days, there will be no one anymore that Iran will help.
Well, I hope so.
There is no one who will help to Hamas. That's the end of Hamas. There will be no such a word. You have to go to Wikipedia to say, Hamas was a military organization from 1987 to 2023. They were fighting so many wars. They did so many terrorists and so on. That's about all.
How would you characterize our relationship with Russia in 1988?
In 1988, it's a good question because in 1988
we had good relations with Russia. We made progress with Russia.
You asked me a question. I just about started.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
I have a theory on that. I think what happened was here's my theory on it. I want to go back and actually. It's interesting. I actually want to go and attend some political science classes at both Carolina, where my daughter's a senior.
Steve, are you trying to help me to answer Adam's question?
Or I just don't support this hatred towards Russia. We had good relations with them under Reagan and Bush.
Yeah, answer, Sasha, please.
Why this hatred towards Russia?
Let Sasha talk.
Adam,
Sasha, please.
You are too young to understand what was happening in the 80s. In 1983, there was a Korean airliner which was shot mercilessly by Russian Air Force, and hundreds of people were killed. At that point, we're still in 1983. Ronald Reagan announced that Russia is an evil empire and has to be. Oh, did you know about that, or you just heard it?
Yes, I was still alive then. I was 12 years old.
You were alive.
I was in New York City when Gorbachev got out of his limo.
You were not dead.
That's a great moment that was.
Okay, so let's think. Okay, so you were alive, as you say. Okay, so
75 I was born.
In 75, you're an old guy. You will be soon. You will not be eligible for president on the same ground as Biden in a few years. However, let me state the following. So Ronald Reagan came up with the concept of Star Wars, so-called, when there were lasers all over the place. Russians were so scared that when they explained that concept to already Gorbachev at that time in 85, and they told Gorbachev that we have no means to reply to that. We have no technology, we have no money, we have nothing. That led to a perestroika, so-called, that Russians wanted to modernize or whatever. Comes 88. What's happened in 88? On Chess Olympiad in Greece, Thessaloniki, I met Garry Kasparov. Garry Kasparov was already a world champion.
You met Kasparov?
Yeah, I know him very well. I have several pictures with him. And he was actually one who endorsed my project of Chess Stars. Now, when I met Kasparov, we had about 30, 40 minutes talk over coffee and so on. And I asked him, what Russia will do in a threat of the American Star Wars program, and America will dominate. Can Russia come up with anything? Garry said, no, they don't have anything. They have nothing. Zero. Because they are behind in technology, especially in computer technology, in microchips. They are not several years, they are centuries behind the West, and particularly the United States. They're absolutely helpless. They're zero. And you will see that in a few years, that country will no longer will exist. It was 88. Soviet Union was dissolved in 1991, in December 25th, 1991. Okay? So how you can be a friend of a country that no longer exists? The country that no longer exists has still a place in United Nations. How is that possible? There was no process to say, okay, Russia is now taking a place of the Soviet Union and let's have a vote. Such vote was never taken. So Russia has no business to be in the United States anyway. Yeah, Chip, please.
Yeah, I would say that we're not going to make progress until the people that lived through the Cold War, like Putin, like Biden, like Trump, are dead. And we have younger people. We talked about Pete Buttigieg, the governor of New Hampshire, Sununu. There are sane people that are younger that didn't grow up with the hatred that we had during the Cold War. So these passions aren't there. So there could be a cooperation between states like Russia and the United States, despite their long-standing animosity, if younger people could build the bridges of peace. It's not out of the question. It can be done. But with our current leaders, with their old hatreds, a man like Putin, ex-KGB, he influenced our elections. He tried to make them as much acrimony as he can build in the West. He tries to stir it up. This is the kind of guy who funds Hamas, funds Hezbollah. This is how he thinks. How can he destabilize other countries?
Wait a second.
I'm going to wrap up because I have to go.
You don't think that we influence elections? And all I'll say is this: there
are no elections in Russia to influence.
There was a time in the 80s when we had peaceful relations with Russia and, in fact, Iraq. Look at the pictures with James Baker and Saddam Hussein. I am not for vilifying Russia. I don't believe there's any reason to do so. And this animosity towards Russia, to me,
it's not Russia. It's Putin.
Yes, and I love Russia. Share your opinion on Putin.
I love Russian writers as a class.
Oh, he was head of the KGB. Well, George H.W. Bush was head of the CIA. So I mean,
and George Bush had some questionable tactics too.
We don't have the moral superiority over any other country.
Oh yeah, we do over people who
on what grounds
go in and rape as part of our terrorist tactics.
I've got to run. I want to thank you all for being on World Politics. I'll be back on Thursday. Thank you all so much.
Oh, and we didn't just change the government in Iraq and Iran in the late 70s. We just didn't do that. We didn't go to Vietnam and rape women and kill children.
Signing off, Steve Rao. Thank you.
Bye, Steve.
Happy Halloween.
Joining us.
Bye, Adam. Happy Halloween.
I have a question. So if Putin was eliminated from the situation and they had a different leader, let's pray that the different leader is somebody who's nicer. It could go the other way, right? Just as easy. His replacement is just as mean. But if Putin was eliminated, could we get along with Russia better?
Absolutely. It's possible. Like you said, though, it could go worse. There could be somebody worse than Putin. We know that Putin is a terrorist. There's no doubt.
Did George W. Bush get along with Putin? I think so. Did we get along with Gorbachev?
No.
Yes, so. Did we get along with Boris Yeltsin? Yes, so. Yes, so.
Trump got along with Putin. And that was because Putin overpowered him.
George W. Bush. You guys vilification of one man
he was polite, Adam. That's it.
Mr. Putin, I apologize for these types of insults.
Mr. Putin, I double down. I think you're a terrorist, a war criminal. I hope
you should not be going to Moscow after saying something like that. You're disrespecting the regime.
I am.
I don't want to go to Russia.
Somebody in that regime needs to take Putin out. It's on you, Russia. Take care of your own business.
So terroristic of you to do so.
No. So the rumors about Putin having a heart attack, those were just rumors.
I respect your opinion.
I just have elections, Adam.
I respect your opinion.
Adam. They don't have elections.
Like elections are a great thing. Look at what elections in the U.S. produce. Donald Trump, Jimmy Carter. Democracy is a great thing. I don't think democracy is a great thing. If you want, I believe in benevolent dictators like in Singapore.
This is what I mean about not being an American.
I appreciate.
He likes Putin. He doesn't like democracy. This is not an
Well,
America.
I don't
what's
either.
the nicest, safest country that exists today, and how are they ruled?
Finland.
And how are they ruled?
They have a socialist capitalist
Yeah,
marriage.
James is right. Finland is a place where Finland is probably my favorite country. They value education. They
They're the
value
happiest. They're the happiest.
yes. Finland is a beautiful, beautiful place. If I could go to Helsinki right now, I would on my way to Moscow.
It's
But
still
do you think it's safe and,
You know,
and
Sasha's
the
right.
people are happy? Is it safe?
don't-
and the
You
people
could get
are
to
happy?
Moscow, Adam, but you couldn't get back.
Personally, I think
I wouldn't want to
Japan.
come back. I would be welcome with open arms. Have you ever heard the Russian national anthem? I mean, geez, it gives you
Oh,
chills.
I think Japan
You
is.
do
the
get chills in
safest.
And you're
Siberia.
a chess player. Look at the chess
In
prodigies
Siberia,
Russia.
you will get chills.
Adam,
Yeah,
I'll tell you
here
one
we
thing.
are,
You're
Sasha.
into something. The more you're going to talk about how great is Putin and Russia and so on, you can do a good career with Russian intelligence service. They're looking always for people like yourself.
Useful idiots.
Let's
And-
not go that far.
they
I don't
will-
love Putin. I just don't think he's the horrible monster you guys make him
I
out to
think
be.
you
Jeez.
like Russia better than you do Putin, and I think we're timed out, so we'll see everyone. No, we're not actually. We got
Nothing wrong with Russia.
Looking at the
A
wrong
good
clock.
leader can't
It's
fit.
beautiful in Moscow. Have you ever seen the pictures? Oh my
Oh.
God! If there's heaven on earth, that's where it is.
I lived there.
And
I
maybe
know.
in Los
This
Angeles,
guy's talking
in
about
the
pictures.
Hollywood
Sasha
Hills,
lived there.
I lived there, my darling.
and in
I
Helsinki.
No, Helsinki. I never left in Helsinki, but I left in Moscow. I spent a few years in Moscow. I rented an apartment there, and I was sort of in the middle of everything. And I remember how everything started to deteriorate around a year 2005. Once Putin was elected for second term, he had first term from 2000 to 2004, and then 2005, 2008. From 2005, everything started to change. He had a Munich speech in 2007 when he declared that Russia is going to fight for its place in the world, that it's going to fight all these imperialists and US and NATO and everything else. And next year, 2008, they started invasion against Georgia, and they blocked Ukraine from joining European Union and NATO. In 2014, they annexed Crimea. In 2015, and they started war in Syria, and on and on and on. And it's just one little man, this Putin, your darling Adam. That's all he did. Bravo.
It's all old
Bravo.
war. It's all Cold War bullshit.
And now he spends time with Hamas delegation. And you know
Living in
what
the
was
past.
happening in Makhachkala airport in the south of Russia? There were people, hundreds of people, all Muslims. They were waiting for a plane coming to Makhachkala
Jews.
from Israel.
From El Al.
They wanted to find all Jews and kill all of them. This is Putin's Russia. That's what's happening there.
Yeah, think about all the pogroms that were
Pogroms?
run. And
So-
this is stuff, like Fiddler on the Roof. This stuff was Russia.
Absolutely.
I mean,
whenever Russia had internal problems, they were turning everything against Jews. And this is why Russia has so engraved anti-Semitism there. So you can just say one word and you can see demonstrations, you can have pogroms, you can have almost anything. This is the reality of Putin's.
Did you enjoy living in Russia?
No.
Why?
Well, because you never feel safe. If in the evening, once the darkness is there, you are trying not to leave your apartment or hotel or wherever you are.
I'll tell you what Alex Yermolinsky told me. He's a Russian grandmaster of St. Petersburg. And he said
I
it was
like
dog
living
eat
in
dog.
in the Bronx or Brooklyn.
Pardon me? I was
No,
talking
go
and I
ahead.
got interrupted. I was going to say what Alex Yermolinsky, a grandmaster born in St. Petersburg, told me. He said it was dog eat dog, so you found a pack. You found a pack that you ran with so that you could be protected. Each of us could protect the other.
Protected
Yeah.
from what?
Just use your imagination, Adam. If you did something wrong, your neighbor would tell on you, and then you would get arrested, and then you may disappear.
Right,
That
if you got out of line.
if you did something that the state did not like you to do.
You don't
If
think
it-
that doesn't happen here?
Yeah, I do think it doesn't happen
I was
here.
just
don't
going to
think
say,
it
what do you
disappeared.
think happens here,
I
and what's
think it
happening to
does
Donald
happen
Trump with these
here.
prosecutions?
He's not disappeared, Adam. We don't have
Oh,
a
give it
Siberia.
time.
We don't have gulags.
Remember
we don't
John
have
F.
a
Kennedy?
gulag archipelago.
John F. Kennedy got out of
it's,
line.
unless it's for urban blacks and people of color,
See,
they get arrested and shipped off.
I
to-
respect your opinion,
to-
but
to
I do not
jail.
believe the U.S. has any moral claim of superiority on Russia or any other country because we are guilty of the very things that you allege that Russia.
Now, you and I are pretty much aligned on that, except I think you're taking it to an extreme that I don't go to, which is to say that these terrorists are equivalent to the United States. They are.
I will tell
They're
you
not equivalent.
that
It's a false
our
equivalency.
government can be just as big a terrorist as any other government in this world, and I have evidence of it.
We have
And
done
country,
very bad
our
things.
country, Jim, has become so dangerous. I fear going out of my door without a gun. You get threatened if you are pro-Palestinian. You get threatened. You get your life
Or
threatened.
black in the South.
Harley people. Oh, don't come around here. We'll
Black
beat
in the
your
South.
ass. So, and there are mass shootings almost every day now.
Hey, no one is going to defend
And
the United States and say that they're this
There
great
is-
country that's never done anything wrong. However, we are a country of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
how
And
many
we fall
countries
short of
have
our
as many
ideals all
mass
the time.
shootings?
We
How
fall
many
short of our
countries have
ideals.
this many mass
And
shootings?
this Trump was responsible for a lot of this divisiveness
I agree.
that has led to hatred and the hatred
I
of the
agree.
other. And it
We
doesn't
don't
matter
fall short.
who the other is.
We
It
don't
doesn't
fall
matter if
short.
it's blacks, Jews, Catholics. It doesn't matter. It's to hate somebody. And that's empowering for a while when you get around people that hate like you do. And this country has taken a real wrong turn going with the Trump crowd.
Oh,
And
I
it's gonna get
agree
back.
because the hate
It's
just
gonna go back.
elevated.
It's also taken a
The
wrong
hate got
turn.
way elevated. It never was like that in my
It's
entire
also,
life.
it's
I was
also
born in the
taken a wrong turn.
1950s, Adams. I never saw it like this. I saw the Vietnam War protests. I participated in the Vietnam War protests. It was never as bad as it is now.
This is not all reducible to Trump. Trump is not single-handedly to
didn't
blame. Our
start that.
academic
I never said he
institutions are to
started it.
blame.
I never
the
said he
proliferation
started
of
that.
morons in the
Words in my
United States
mouth.
are to blame.
Don't put words
Farce
in my
that
mouth.
is elections.
But Trump was like throwing gasoline on the fire. Everything that we hate, lots of stuff happened before him. This whole Tea Party business was nuts. However, he was elected president and he had the bully pulpit. And instead of calming people down, he inflamed it. He has to pay the price.
My family is
James,
probably
imagine
the
a
biggest
conservative in a
Trump
classroom
supporters
at
in the
Yale
world.
trying to offer a conservative opinion. Do you realize how they get vilified? Do you
You
realize
know how many people in
vilified?
Yale, like George
You want to
Bush?
talk about fascism? It's on the
You
left.
you don't
in
know
the Ivy League
Yale.
colleges.
My uncle went to Yale.
Well,
And-
your uncle went to Yale at a time when Yale was not the way it is today,
yeah, but George Bush went to Yale. You know,
which is
you know how
no
the
comment.
Skull and Bones people, they're all executives at companies now, and they're all conservative. So Yale's not the right example. Believe me.
yes, yeah. Well, look at recently judges, academics who are conservative go there. They get shouted down. They get shouted down at Stanford. They get shouted down at Harvard. ridiculous.
Yeah, no, that is a reasonable discussion we can have at another time. However, you don't understand what Yale is like. I'll tell you that much. And
Well,
it's again a false equivalency. What we were talking about is the hatred, and the hatred was started or before Trump, but Trump was elected president and he poured gasoline on the fire, and he has to be held accountable. That guy belongs behind bars. He'll never be there. But at
My
least
family-
and look at how
unelected. And nobody that he endorses should get elected.
look at how many universities have failed to condemn Hamas.
Well, I had dinner with a
Talk
dean
about
of
pouring
Stanford.
gasoline on the fire. Man, I feel
excuse me,
gaslit right
excuse
now. as a
me.
matter of fact.
When
Well,
you
not
talk,
Hamas,
then
though.
I get a chance to talk. That's the way it works. So I had a dean of Stanford come over for dinner, and he was disappointed with Stanford's response. And then the faculty got together and forced them to issue a second news item about it. So yeah, there's a lot of controversy. So don't paint it all with one brush. There's a
Well,
lot of
same
people-
to you. Same to you. Don't paint Trump with one brush. I will say I
No.
respect Stanford. I spent a week at Stanford on a constitutional law. Great place, great professors.
I live in walking distance from it, and I take continuing education courses there. Yeah, I'm a Stanford fan. However, the point is that it is a false equivalency to say, Trump is like these guys. There's an extreme right now that has taken control of the Republican Party, and that's damaging to our country. They couldn't even elect a House Speaker, and then they did. They elected this guy who's kind of a little weird, don't you think? I mean, he says homosexuality is a choice, and I think it's because he's pretending to be heterosexual.
Yeah, he's
a weirdo.
I dismiss him, but what I will say is that when you say false equivalency, that's ultimately subjective. What I think we can agree on is that people like you and me, if we were governing, I guarantee you we could meet in the middle and listen to each other and come up with principled solutions to problems. Our politicians can't, and that's a shame.
Shake hands.
Cheers.
So I want to say something about the Trump. My family is probably one of the biggest Trump supporters in the world. It's kind of hard for me to go around and I have to just zip it. But they will go around and they'll sit there and, how great he is, but, his chapstick needs to be made out of a glue stick. Well, how is that the world's greatest president? Really? They know he is ill-mannered, wrong, that he has thrown gas on everybody out here and ignited a divide that
He's thrown everybody he's known under the bus.
Because
right.
they don't see it that way.
But unfortunately, we have really run out of time this time. Somebody said that Jim should dress up as Trump for Halloween. I think Sasha should dress up as Putin for Halloween. And, Adam can go as a president right now.
I've done Richard Nixon.
Richard Nixon.
Oh, what a great president Nixon was. That Watergate was a third-grade burglary. What was the big
It
deal?
was a third-grade
And
burglary.
I want to thank everyone for joining us. And we will see you
Teaching that
this
man.
Thursday. All right, we're walking out of here.